Many people feel that they are not happy. Is it possible to be happy in this world? Let's have a look at 5 ways you can be happy. The first way is to avoid disappointment by not expecting complete happiness. If we expect complete happiness and demand that our life be perfect, we are going to be very disappointed. The Bible is very honest about our life in this world. Job chapter 14 verse 1, for example, says, "Man born of woman is short of days and loaded with stress." Psalm 90 verse 10 says, "The days of our years are 70 years, but if powerful, 80 years. Yet their demand is struggle and pointlessness." Let's have a look at 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, "But know this, that in the last days, critical times, hard to deal with, will be here." Yes, the Bible is very honest about what life is like today, that it is difficult. Let's turn over to John chapter 15. These are the words of Jesus in verse 19. "If you were part of the world would be fond of what is its own. Now because you are no part of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, for this reason the world hates you." If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. So Jesus is saying that there would be hatred in the world as well, especially towards his disciples, and they would persecute those disciples. So no, life is not going to be easy in this world. If we expect life to be difficult, we won't be disappointed when our efforts to be happy don't work out. So we can avoid that disappointment by not expecting complete happiness. The second way that we can be happy is the future hope. The Bible shows us that the world is about to change. Let's have a look at this in 2 Peter. Chapter 3 and verse 13. "But there are new heavens and a new earth that we are awaiting, according to his promise. And in these righteousness is to dwell." A world where righteousness dwells is going to be a world that is very different to the world we're living in now. But that is what's promised in the Bible, and that new heavens and the new earth is what we are waiting for. So that is a hope that is going to come in the near future. Revelation chapter 21 also talks about this. Verses 1 to 4. "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. I also saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, and prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. With that I heard a loud voice from the throne say, "Look, the tent of God is with mankind, and he will reside with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them, and he will wipe out every tear from their eyes. And death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away." Yes, the world will be very different to what it is like now. That is our future hope. Keeping our minds on that hope can help us to be happy now. Let's have a look at what Jesus said about this in Luke chapter 21. Verses 27 and 28. "And then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. As these things start to occur, stand up straight and lift up your heads, because your deliverance is getting near." Our deliverance from this world is near, and that gives us reason to lift up our heads and stand up straight. Our hope in the future makes us happy. The third way we can be happy is by personality and attitude. Our own personality and attitude. The Bible describes Jehovah as the happy God and tells us to be imitators of God like loved children. So it's about just having the personality of being happy. Mental attitude. Let's have a look at Romans chapter 5. Verses 3 to 5. "Let us rejoice while in tribulations, since we know that tribulation produces endurance. Endurance, in turn, an approved condition. The approved condition, in turn, hope. And the hope does not lead to disappointment, because the love of God has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, which has been given us." Talks about how tribulation, tests, difficulties can produce endurance. And this personality development during difficult times gives us a reason to be happy. And then our hope becomes more sure in the biblical promises because we have endured. Romans chapter 12, verse 12 says, "Rejoice in the hope." So we can choose to respond to the hope in a miserable way, or we can rejoice because of that hope. It depends on what attitude we want to have. Knowing how difficult life can be in this world, Jehovah tells us the attitude that we should have. Let's have a look at this in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 4. It says, "Always rejoice in the Lord. Again I will say, rejoice." So this is an attitude and a personality quality that we can develop and put on to be determined to rejoice. Our personality and attitude can make us happy. The fourth way that we can be happy is about feeling good about who we are, our identity. The Bible gives us a strong and privileged identity. Let's have a look at an example of this in Revelation chapter 21 and verse 7. It says, "Anyone conquering will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son." So the author of the Bible, God, is saying it is possible for you to be my son. And being a son of God leads to a special role and the guarantee of survival. Let's have a look at Joel chapter 2. Verse 28. It says, "Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams, and your young men will see visions. And even on my male slaves and female slaves I will pour out my spirit in those days." Verse 32. "And everyone who calls on the name of Jehovah will be saved. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be those who escape, just as Jehovah has said, the survivors whom Jehovah calls." Let's have a look how Jehovah describes his people in Isaiah chapter 51. Isaiah 51 verse 16. Jehovah says, "I will put my words in your mouth, and with the shadow of my hand I will cover you, in order to plant the heavens and to lay the foundation of the earth, and to say to Zion, you are my people." Was Jehovah only talking about the Jews? No, because in Hosea chapter 2 and verse 23, he says this, "I will sow her like seed for myself in the earth, and I will show mercy to her who was not shown mercy. I will say to those not my people, you are my people. And they will say, you are my God." So the nations who were not Israel, who were not the Jews, who were not Jehovah's people, some of them would be called my people by Jehovah. So no, it's not talking about only the Jews. He's talking about those who Jehovah views as his people. And that is something that those people can rejoice very much about, because they can feel good about who they are to a certain extent and rejoice in the strong identity they have as Jehovah's people. So these words about being Jehovah's people also apply to the true followers of Jesus. Let's have a look at what he said in John chapter 15. Verse 16, Jesus said, "You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and keep bearing fruit, and that your fruit should remain." I have chosen you out of the world. Jesus has specially chosen his disciples. The true Christians have a unique identity. And look at what Jesus says in verse 11. "These things I have spoken to you, so that my joy may be in you, and your joy may be made full." This unique identity and our relationship with Jesus and Jehovah makes us happy. Psalm 65 and verse 4 says, "Happy is the one you choose and cause to approach, that he may reside in your courtyards." Another way we can be happy is what the Bible calls fruits, or good actions. Let's have a look at what Acts chapter 20 and verse 35 says about good actions. And how those good actions can make us happy. Acts chapter 20 verse 35. "I have shown you in all things that by working hard in this way, you must assist those who are weak, and must keep in mind the words of the Lord Jesus when he himself said, 'There is more happiness in giving than there is in receiving.'" Giving makes us happy. Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 21 says, "Happy is he who is showing favor to the afflicted ones." Let's have a look at an example that Jesus gave in John chapter 13. Verses 12 to 18. "When now Jesus had washed their feet, and had put his outer garments on, he again reclined at the table, and said to them, 'Do you understand what I have just done to you? You address me as teacher and Lord, and you are correct, for I am such. Therefore, if I, the Lord and teacher, washed your feet, you should also wash the feet of one another. For I set the pattern for you, that just as I did to you, you should do also. Most truly I say to you, a slave is not greater than his master, nor is one who is sent greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, happy you are if you do them." I am not talking about all of you. I know the ones I have chosen. So Jesus taught that serving other sheep within Jesus' flock would make us happy. Jesus taught us to practice giving and said that we will be blessed if we do so. He said this in Luke chapter 6. Verse 38. Practice giving and people will give to you. They will pour into your laps a fine measure, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. For with the measure that you are measuring out, they will measure out to you in return. First John chapter 4 and verse 7 and 8 tells us how important it is to love. 1 John chapter 4 verses 7 and 8. Beloved ones, let us continue loving one another, because love is from God. And everyone who loves has been born from God and knows God. Whoever does not love has not come to know God, because God is love. Only by loving others can we truly know Jehovah, the happy God. The Bible shows us how to be happy. We've seen 5 ways here that we can be happy. The first one was to avoid disappointment by not expecting complete happiness in this world. The second one was our future hope, because the world is about to change. The third way we can be happy was by our own personality and attitude. The fourth way was our identity, feeling good about who we are. And the fifth way we can be happy is by producing fruits, good actions. The Bible does show us how to be happy. Psalm 1 says, "Happy is the man whose delight is in the law of Jehovah, and he reads his law day and night." Even in this terrible world, Jehovah, the happy God, shows us how to be happy to the extent that is possible in our circumstances. But true and absolute happiness is very near.